Welcome to Grace on Fire, bravely creating with wild abandon that which sets our hearts on fire. And I am so happy. I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed getting to know this amazing woman, Mary Crafts, is so fun. Wait till you find out more about her. Wow. And so we're so excited to introduce to you and let our hearts be set on fire by Mary Crafts. Welcome, Mary Crafts, to Grace on Fire. How are you doing today?
Oh, Grace, what a delight to be here with you. And I love the idea of that by our conversation, we will set not only ourselves on fire, but the lives of your listeners. And I'm just excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for your contribution to the listeners to find out about you and be inspired by you and your life and your mission. So I have some questions for you, Mary. Are you
Okay,
ready
I'm
for
ready.
question number one?
Yes.
Okay. Mary, your life has been one transition after another. What would you say are your three greatest lessons that have helped you move to where you are today?
I was thinking about that today about my transitions of life. I was born and raised in Iowa in a small town of 250 people, and no one in town had a college education. And so when my parents wanted us to go to school, it meant we were leaving that little town and we weren't going to be with them. And they knew that, yet that was so important to them. And I transitioned then into college life and then eventually moved away, moved to Utah to complete my education. And then as life goes on, you transition into being a mother, being a wife and a mother. And then when I realized that my husband was bipolar and not ever going to be able to hold down a job, that the support of this family fell to me. And so then it was a matter of transitioning to being an entrepreneur, to raise and to care for them, my children, so I didn't have to give them a daycare because my husband was not able to do that either. And then to transition from being a full-fledged entrepreneur to being, a mega career person in that part of my life. And then, of course, you get to be a grandmother eventually. And then eventually I did end that marriage. It was so much domestic violence and abuse. And transitioned then into finding the real authentic me and what that looked like and who I was. And oftentimes people say to me, how did you do that? What lessons, what foundations did you like go back to school and how to transition and live in your real life? I'm like, well, not really. We are all given gifts. And we don't often recognize them and we don't often embrace them. But I was able to recognize mine and embrace them. And the first one, I realized if I was going to survive this marriage and if I was going to be able to release the things of my past that I had brought into that marriage, the number one thing that was important was for me to learn to be accountable for my own life, to not use excuses, to not play victim. And as we all learn accountability, the world begins to open up, because if we don't like where we are or who we are, the good news is we can change it. If you're accountable, if you're a victim, you can't change anything. And the second piece that I think was a huge thing for me, and this didn't happen to me when I was really 50, and I'm now 69. So I've kind of been 19 years living in this space of understanding how fear had controlled my life. I was so afraid of so many things: rejection, failure, to not be accepted. I was afraid of being laughed at. I was afraid of so many things. And so imagine a life where every decision that you make is based on fear. How could you possibly be making right ones? And as I recognized that in myself, I began to realize, well, how do I change that? what do I do to have that be different? And it became so clear to me that the only way to replace fear is with love. And it had to begin with me, to learn to actually love myself, not that perfect made up person who I was trying to be, but the real authentic me. And I don't think that we have the ability to let go of those fears until we're really willing to stop hiding. And I've written a book, and it's called Unbounded: From Sorrow to Summit. And I think that's the greatest thing I say in the book, where I say the healing starts when the hiding stops. And as long as I am hiding, I cannot heal. As long as I am hiding the person that needs to be healed. And to allow that vulnerability to open, and the beauty of that. And then the third greatest lesson that has helped me transition and will continue to help me transition, probably from now until whenever I move into the next life, is that the one thing that we are all about, and I think we miss in this life, the universal dream of humankind. And I believe the universal dream of humankind is oneness. That I am you, and you are me. And I'm not wanting us all to be identical twins and same. I mean, that would be pretty chaotic, a whole world of Mary Crafts. Please. But that we're unique, but yet the same. We hurt the same, we feel the same, we have heartbreak, we have joy, we have laughter. And where the world has taken us is to separateness. And so the more that separateness lives, the more that separateness thrives, the more apart we are. So when you see the vision of one and what that looks like, then I am more committed now than I ever have been to bring oneness into my life. And those are probably the three greatest lessons that have helped me transition through so many pieces in my life.
Wow, Mary, I am already moved and deeply, deeply transformed inside just by your message, that those three things, to have you review your life and all those amazing transitions through human life, and the trials and challenges. Your husband, I'm sure, this it's been trials, and then those lessons, the lessons that you bring forth. And I love the accountability. I love them all. And the first, what was the first one again?
Accountability. We're no longer, we cannot play victim.
Right. Was there one before that?
Not really. It's kind of that accountability.
Accountability.
And then learning the grip of fear.
Okay. There you go. The fear. Okay. Got it. Accountability, the fear, and then oneness. Those are the three, those three, just to bring those into awareness, and then to bring ourselves to this place of, like you say, being our authentic self and having the self-love, being able to be the vulnerable people we are, so that we can come together. And the immediate vision that I got in my mind, I know John gave it to me immediately, it was so beautiful when you were talking about oneness, was an octopus with as many little tentacles as there are humans. And the octopus was the oneness, and the very tip of the tentacles were little human beings. And we think we're separate, but we're really not, like the Aspen Grove and all of that. But I want to go on to your next question. Any tips for our listeners as they look for their true, authentic self?
That is such a catchphrase now. If on social media you use the hashtag and you just even begin to type in AU, immediately 100 variations of authentic self come up, because everybody is hashtagging authentic self. And that's the cool thing to be right now. But you and I have been around this planet enough times to know that authentic self And the striving for that has been something that's been with us since the beginning of time. It's not new. It's not a catchphrase. It has always been the quest of this life. And so as people look, well, how do I know my authentic self? How do I find that person? How will I recognize her? And you cannot recognize or find your authentic self in the presence of what I call the whip. The whip we use to punish ourselves, the whip we use to keep us in place, the whip we use to hide our flaws, the whip that says you must stand tall, you cannot cry, the whip that says, oh, you're never going to be good at that, the whip that says, you're always going to have thunder thighs, you know. I mean, the whip that says whatever to us, and we hold tight to the whip. You find your authentic self by dropping the whip. For the first time, nothing beautiful grows in the presence of the whip. You find your authentic self when the first time you can crack the crack and let someone in. If you can let someone else in, then perhaps you can see within. It's time to stop hiding. That's how we find our authentic self. And the healing from all those years of the whipping, which began with our parents, they didn't know. They thought that was what parents did. What's wrong with you? Why in the world are you doing that? And of course, we didn't know. We just whipped ourselves. I don't know. There must be something wrong with me because I'm doing that and my parents hate it. So, you know. But the joy is that we get to choose something different and to stop whipping ourselves. And as you step into the authentic self, the thing that comes and that happens is this gift of self-love. And I also went through a huge transition in my life where finally at age 50, and I realized how much fear I had been living. And I realized that I didn't want to live this way anymore. And I went from 284 pounds to 140.
Wow.
It took me about 6 years. And to be honest with you, I did not really do crazy diets or surgery or pills or anything, but it was the desire to let my true self be shown. And as I stepped into that authentic self, I just naturally made better choices. I naturally spent more time out in nature. I naturally did all these things rather than using the whip to tell me that I needed to get out there and I needed to eat better. And the whip was not working. But as I began to love myself and step into that, and I dropped the whip, and I began to see that woman that I always thought I had to hide was actually the woman that drew people to me. And that was what people love. Now on my podcast or in my book or when I talk, I do a lot of motivational speaking, and they most love to hear those things where I'm willing to be vulnerable. And I'm willing to show a PowerPoint with me at that weight. I'm willing to show a PowerPoint where I'm like, I don't think I can ever wear short sleeves. I've lost all this weight, but I still have arms that go woo, woo, woo. And people say like, well, that's how I am. And when I was able to stop hiding that my husband was abusing me, I didn't stop hiding that till I was 55. When I was finally able to stop that, people came out of the woodwork to be close to me, to find the way, the path. And what I thought was the ugliest thing to hide was actually the thing that I had the most wisdom to share. Mm-hmm. We have to trust that. We have to trust that we're hiding is the most beautiful piece of us. Wow. Mm.
Mm. Wow, Mary, thank you. Thank you. I am just being moved and just touched in a really deep way by your message and your story. And I want to go on to the next question. This is, I mean, it's so funny because the authentic self was really present for me. And then your next question was the authentic self. And so it's just flowing so perfectly. At age 69, do you still have goals of what is next for you? And you look much younger than 69, must I say.
You know, I think that that's really when the end of life happens, whether your physically body or passes away, when you stop dreaming. That's the end of life, when you stop dreaming. And you know, now I summited Kilimanjaro a week before my 66th birthday. And when I came back, I was like, I'm going to do an even bigger mountain now. And then as time went on, I was like, you know, I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. But I still have hills to climb and valleys to walk through. And it's still a sense of adventure. I think that as we look to what's ahead of us, we will always have this sense of adventure. What's next? And how will I embrace it? What is my favorite catchphrase is the one that says, not why is this happening to me, but how is this happening for me? And I recently I moved into this new home and I was putting something away. I was high up on a step ladder, trying to shove it on the top shelf. This was 2 weeks ago. The step ladder went out from underneath me. I went airborne. I'd never been airborne from a fall. I've fallen, but not airborne. And when I came down, my arm caught the dresser, which kind of slowed my fall. My feet caught the bottom rung of my closet clothes, and it broke my fall just enough that when I landed on my back, and then my neck came back and hit my head, I didn't die. I didn't break my back. I didn't have a concussion. I did find out today, I did break one of the little bones, the phalanges that comes off my back, but I'm not paralyzed and I live. So immediately I thought, because the first thought was, what? Why is this happening to me? And then when I heard myself say that, I was like, whoa, whoa, how is this happening for me? And it began to me, I was like, so with gratitude that those two things caught my fall and I didn't die. Those two things saved me to live and love another day. And so whenever you feel that you have a purpose in this life, you know that your life is going to be filled with wonderful things. And I don't know what's ahead of me at this point. I just know that it will be full of adventure and full of gratitude and grace.
Wow. Mary Crafts, you are so inspiring. I mean, everything that you have shared is so very inspiring. I think moving from victim to the victim self to the empowered self when you fell and you told yourself, what's happening? Why is this happening to me? And then, why is this happening for me?
Yeah.
How is this happening for me? I mean, when you go, how is this happening for me? That's a whole different state of mind than the victim.
Absolutely.
Why this powerlessness and the whip. That, what a great, I've never heard that before for, you know, that critical self, the judger, whatever you want, but the whip. Wow. What a good distinction.
Well, when I envision the whip, I mean, when you say let go of your critical self, it's kind of in your head. You're up in your brain.
Who is that?
But when you say drop that whip, you can actually see it in your mind's eye. Just throw it as far as you can get.
And the fact that is, it's like you are emotionally whipping yourself.
Absolutely.
You're hurting, you're attacking yourself when you listen to that voice of insanity in your mind that is always judging and criticizing, making you wrong, or saying something disempowering. You know, and the greatest mystery is that voice. What is it? Where does it come from? Who is it? It's not me. You know, but we all have it. It's
one of
human.
the greatest. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Actually, I'm going to move over now. I'm going to end our highlight on Mary
Okay.
crafts and